Today I'm going to show you what a good dynamic warm-up looks like. These are my favorite type of warm-ups because you're moving as you're going, you're stretching the muscles at the same time. So it's kind of the best of both worlds as opposed to just stretching or just running. I'll show you my favorite movement to warm up, something that gets me going every time, even when I don't feel like working out. I just do the first warm-up exercise, and by the time I'm done even with the first one, I'm like starting to feel it and starting to feel better. Something I like to do with my stretches, so I actually just stretch just a little bit, mostly my hip flexors before I get started with anything. Our hip flexors are pretty restricted for sitting all day long, especially me. I'm behind a desk most of the day outside of like my workout, just walking. So I always like to stretch my hip flexors every single day. And to do that, it's super simple. You're just on one knee, you're putting the other leg out, and you're just leaning towards it. You're gonna feel that on the opposite side of the leg that's out in that hip flexor there. I'll put my arm up sometimes to stretch it even further along my side here, okay? But the biggest thing is just leaning forward and just getting a good little squeeze there, nothing crazy. And then I'll just rotate back and forth in that stretch. Dynamic warm-up exercise I like to do is called a Frankenstein or a punter's kick. So a Frankenstein, you're just putting your arm straight out in front of you and you're kicking towards them. I like to do the punter's kick where you're kind of stretching that shoulder at the same time and kicking at the same time. So if you don't have a lot of room, I obviously have some room here in my garage gym. I'm gonna go back and forth with everything, but literally everything I'm about to show you, you can actually do just standing in place. The punter kick looks just like this here, okay? And I'm just kicking as high as I can. This is gonna stretch out the hammies, the back, all that good stuff. Next dynamic warm-up exercise I like to do is the hammy walk. Okay, so this is gonna stretch out kind of the same, but hitting it different. So my glute, my lower back, and my hamstring. So I'm really cautious of this area because I've had surgery here, I've had prior injuries. I always wanna make sure those areas are nice and loose before I start any kind of lifting or any kind of exercises. So I'm simply just stepping forward, touching my toe, back leg's going up, and I'm swinging that leg through. Now, if you can't swing your leg through, if your balance isn't there, you just simply stop in the middle and come forward, okay? So it'll be more of this as opposed to that. All right, next dynamic warm-up exercise is going to be a side lunge. So I'm going to focus on stretching out the inner thighs here, my groin muscles. Okay, so I'm simply just standing sideways to where I'm normally going down. This knee is going to bend, this knee is going to stay straight, and I like to just touch the ground just to make sure I'm getting a good squeeze. I pivot and I roll over to the next side, okay? The pivot isn't super necessary, but I like to just keep my body moving. Next thing I like to do, guys, is I'm going to do a down and back high knees and down and back butt kick. So real quick, I'll show you what that looks like. This again, just get the muscles flowing, muscles warmed up, gets my heart rate up a little bit too, which is good. It'll get me prepared to do some cardio. All right, so a couple last final things I like to do. I'm gonna start doing some squats. I probably do 10 to 15 warm-up squats, about maybe parallel to a little bit deeper. And then the last 5, I'm gonna go ahead and hold those squats, because when you can hold a squat for some time, guys, it actually is very good for your body to be able to hold a squat. We're naturally supposed to be able to hold squats like for long periods of time. So it is good to practice your squat. Just make sure you have that mobility. It's actually going to lower your flexibility age, which is super important, especially as you get older. You want to be able to be flexible, nimble, things like that. People that are more nimble and more flexible are going to have less chance of having injury as they age. So first thing we're doing is just a good air squat here, okay? So weight on the heels, okay? Knees tracking on my toes, and every time I go down, I'm just progressively trying to get a little bit lower to where I can hold that squat for a good 4 or 5 seconds, and then I'm gonna come back up. Now, every once in a while, I'll go ahead and just try to hold squats for 20, 30 seconds just to see how long I can actually hold it for. So you technically probably wanna be able to hold a good deep squat for a good 30 seconds. That's where you know you're like flexible enough to kind of be up to par with where you should be. All right, last exercise I like to do, or warm up I like to do, is I'm just gonna touch my toes, really stretch that back out, the hammies, the glutes again. I'm gonna have a slight bend in my knees. If I can't touch my toes all the way, then I'm gonna pull from there. Again, just targeting everything back there. And once I feel good in that position, I'm gonna go ahead and walk it out and go into a push-up. So I'm doing 3 push-ups, and then I'm walking it back to where my heels are almost touching the ground. And that's gonna, again, get the hamstring, the back, the glutes. So you notice how much back, hamstring, and glutes I do, and that's 2 reasons. So 1, that's actually the most injured area for most people. And 2, I've obviously had that back surgery and just a kind of a stiffer back in general. So I always like to make sure I'm nice and loose back there. Okay, I come forward, 3 more push-ups. And again, this is just warming up the upper body for anything I wanna do upper body wise. Hold that for a few seconds and do it 1 more time. All right, and that is my full dynamic warm-up. Do this every time before warm-up, guys. You're gonna feel great. You're gonna be ready to crush it once you get done with it, and it only takes about 10 minutes.